Really? Okay. Oh my God.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started today. It's 11 a.m. on December 6th, 2022. Commissioner Mudge is joining us via Zoom. This is a regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners today. So if you will all put your phone on silence, please, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. An approval of the agenda. Are there any modifications to our agenda to make at this time, Commissioner Mudge or Commissioner Fiedler?
I understand that item 9 has been withdrawn.
Yes.
The angel view.
Okay. And do we need to remove that off of the agenda?
Kayla, thank you. Yeah, I was just going to wait till we got to that item on the agenda and provide that, but happy to tell you now that the Angel View application has been withdrawn.
Okay. So we will remove item number 9 from the agenda.
I don't have anything else for agenda changes.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve the agenda with the removal of agenda item 9.
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion?
Not for me.
Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, cool, thank you. All right, so now we'll head into community informational items. Commissioner Mudge, we'll start with you.
I don't have too much right now. I think as a representative of the county on the Regional Housing Authority, we are waiting for the go from DOLA to apply for infrastructure funding, and so those conversations are happening over the next few weeks in anticipation of that with our partners, and it's nice and exciting to be able to put our assets as county land to use. So looking forward to those conversations.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Fiedler.
None for me.
I don't have anything today either. Any commissioner clarifications? Any commissioner clarifications? No? Okay. Okay, so we're going to move into public comment, and we have 2 individuals in the room that would like to make public comment. If you are on the Zoom and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand or put your name in the chat, and we will call on you in order. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person, and if any action is required, then we will assign that action to county staff. If you're in the room, go ahead.
Sorry, just a question of where do people sign up?
I have a running list here on my end for people in the room.
Okay.
Did you want me to put?
List?
Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Jamie. Okay. Anybody on the Zoom? Okay, I don't see any. All right, so we'll move into those in the room. Bob Calder is up first, if you'd like to come forward.
Okay, the only thing is that really, Sarah, I think that it's pretty important that you would be here. I don't know if you can see me, wherever you're looking for.
Yeah, she can see
And then
you.
also Mike Irwin needs to be here. And I tried to get on the list last week and we didn't make it. So, I mean, it just seems kind of not really, kind of moved without Mike here. And,
I thought Mike was
without
on
Sarah
there.
here, because Sarah's familiar with what's going to.
Right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that the way we do it all?
You can
Zoom now?
just you can just speak to what your request is, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
And also, if I may, just Sarah Mudge is feeling quite sick and is just out of.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sarah. I hope you feel better. Yeah. So, where do you want me to do? Sit up here or? what?
Just stand and
And
make
that's
your,
where people are hearing and seeing you from.
Yeah.
So talk to the owl.
Okay. Well, I've been actually working on this project for years. I want to give you all a little bit of history about what's going on. For you guys, you probably don't know. Sarah knows some, and Mike knows some. I operate as a contractor, mining contractor, for a small company here. It was a mining property up on the east side of Leadville that I've worked at since the 1980s. And I sold it, and it was purchased by a company called CJK in a couple of years ago. So I'm working as a contractor for them, doing a lot of the maintenance and upkeep, partly because I'm so familiar with the location and what's going on. Not much mining going on in Lake County, as you guys know, but extremely critical, I believe, to Leadville, Lake County. So obviously, you guys know if you didn't have the tax dollars coming from Climax, for one thing, it would be pretty painful around here. So mining is a heritage, I think, of the county. You know that through your grandpa and everything like that, of course, Kayla. But in back in the years when we first started the mine, back in the 1990s, the county would actually plow the road for us every day. Now, Sarko was working at the Irene shaft and we were working at the Hopemoor. They would plow, and believe it or not, they would even come up into our road with the grader and plow back down. Royce, Weitzel, Schroeder, those guys were on the crew back then. So it was just kind of a thing to open that road the first thing of the day. Now, through the years, the mine actually closed in about year 2000, and so nothing actually occurred up there. Through those next few years, the ski-doers started going up on the road. You know, because it was closed, the county decided to not plow it at all. They only plowed to Adelaide Park. The ski-doers would just take one track right up the middle of the road. You know, nobody plowed, nobody groomed for them or anything like that. So in 2008, I purchased the Hopemoor mine in the hopes of starting up an underground tour mine. And I won't go through it, but I like to say that the county drug me through the coals, trying to get a conditional use permit to get work done up there. It was very difficult. It cost me money and a lot of time to go through and get a conditional use permit. Now, in the early years of me owning it, the county absolutely did no plowing at all up there. I, of course, tried to get up there with my own, it's a heavy-duty snowplow on a pickup truck, you know, to kind of keep the road open for myself. And it became pretty apparent that it was just beating the heck out of my vehicle. It wasn't going to survive doing that or anything. So that just didn't become the case. So I had gone to the county back then, and commissioners, and I don't even remember who were the commissioners back then, but I asked them to help me open the road at least in the springtime, you know, so I could get in and get things going and working underground to get the tour going and prepared for the season. Now, for some reason back then, the county absolutely just blocked me to beat the fact they would not help at all.
Chair,
Yes.
I just need a point of order. 3 minutes is up on Bob's comment for public comment.
Yeah.
Bob, we have been dealing with this and talking to Tim and Michael about this and getting a response for you. You should be getting that shortly. And after the receipt of that, we can certainly add this as an agenda item to a following regular meeting or work session.
Yeah, I think Bob was talking about the timing of it, so the sooner the better. Perhaps if Michael can tidy that up by December 20th for a decision, right?
Well, I originally wrote about this for this season to Sarah and Mike back in the end of August. I
Okay.
emailed them.
Okay.
And Sarah, I just talked to Kayla on Friday to get on as a regular agenda on the item for today, but somehow I guess it didn't make it.
Yeah.
So that's why she public comment, so I'm sorry about that.
No, it's
Yeah.
okay, Bob. I think we'll go ahead and tidy things up internally, and then we'll connect with you before our next meeting.
Okay, so what should
Sarah, you have Bob's contact.
You'll get a second letter from us, Bob, a second response, and then we
Okay.
can either discuss that with Public Works and Tim, or we can certainly have a conversation with the board.
Okay.
Schedule a next work session before the 20th.
Okay, so is the letter gonna come to me, Sarah, or is it gonna come to CJK?
I'm not certain where Michael had sent that original
I think he
response.
sent it to CJK.
Okay.
So Michael, if you're around, please get me on that, so, because I'm here actually representing that company today.
Okay.
So,
Okay. We will
it's-
absolutely do
It
that.
gets mixed up if it gets sent to them and not to me, because they really don't know what's going on.
Okay. Sounds
Sound
good.
good?
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks.
Next in the room, we have Roxy Aldaz with the high school business class. So if you'd like to chat with us.
Yes, we've been working on a service learning project this semester, and we're here to report out. And so the students are going to take over and do the reporting.
Hello, my name is Alexis Mascarenas, and I'm in the high school business leadership class with Jasmine, Justin, Miriam, and Zayden. We are doing a service learning project where we find a problem in our community or even to make it known. We thought about our pool and how people don't have a reliable pool. And if they wanted to go swimming, they would have to drive miles away. It's important to teach our youth and our seniors to have a place to exercise. We also talked about a place for young teens to go and at least have a place to hang out with friends or family. And we've talked to I think Jeff Fiedler about how much it would be, or even we talked to we also talked to Jeff Anderson, another Paul Anderson, about how we need a new justice center, and he told us that that's the main focus, and how there could be a possibility to getting a youth place open for teens or even for families. And it would take time and also take a lot of money for us to be able to have youth.
My name is Justin, and I had to do the research and collection of data, and rec centers can reduce stress amongst classmates or students, reduce isolation, improve well-being as in health, reduce crime rates, as well as reduce drug use in the community. And the reason it's so important to our community, the reason why it's so important to our community is because some people don't have the money to do hiking, skiing, or other things. Having a rec center can help us get them outside, talk to people, and reduce their stress levels as well as their anxiety levels. And it's safer for people to travel there, because going over the Free Mountain Pass can have an avalanche danger as well as a low visibility danger from blind corners. And it can also help people with rehab that struggle with addictions, and can help a lot more people with family if they don't have the time to take care of their child at home, and they can leave their child at a place that's safe and that they are attended to. It can also be a hangout center that we can have people just talk and reduce their stress levels as well. And yeah.
My name is Zayden, and the two main ways that we've gathered data and information for our presentation was from talking to people affiliated with the county government, as well as the pool. We've spoken with the mayor, Jeff Fiedler, Jeff Fiedler, Jen Harrelson, Latina B. Swims, Paul Anderson, Brandon Leverett, and the list goes on. We also went through the school district, county, and city master plans, the school report for OCIS, the Lake County Aquatic Center audit, and more. We chose to gather information these ways because we were essentially going straight to the source. Talking with people affiliated with the county and its government gives us the most credible and best information, as well as the best possible input. We went through all the documents for background information to look more into something one of the people. Wait, what? Hold on. Oh my god. We went through all of the documents for background information to look more into something one of the people we spoke with brought up, and to help us find something we have enough. Oh my god. To help us find something we have questions about. There we go. We've been doing this all semester to build up enough information to bring here and hopefully make a big enough impact to see change in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to us and putting us on your agenda. We really enjoyed coming here and presenting to all of you. We would like to thank these people in particular: Jeff Fiedler, Jane Harrelson, Paul Anderson, Amy Tate, Margarita Perea, Karen Lewis, Felicia Federico, Anna Guilford, Brandon Leverett, and Greg. We thank you guys for taking time out of your day to come and present to us and providing information for us. We really appreciate it. I hope that maybe in the future things can change and we can get some of the things we want, like some of the things we would like are like a complete rec center, a pool, like just a place for us to hang out. That you can keep the youth of Lake County in mind. And, again, we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it? That's it. All right. Thanks so much, Roxy, and class for coming to bring that to us today. We appreciate it. Okay. Jamie, they're gonna file out, and then you can come up if you want to, or you can stand back there, whatever you prefer.
People on side.
Go ahead, Jamie. You can come on up or stand back there, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, I'm over here, I guess.
Sure.
Okay. Good morning. My name's Jamie Cipher, and I live at 1300 Harrison Ave. I'm here today as a concerned citizen who is frustrated and embarrassed by the lack of accountability for our elected officials. In the absence of that accountability, the BOCC has established a history of making citizens' lives worse by failing to do easy things. I'll share a few examples. Obviously, it's harmful to citizens that you're censuring our assessor today, and it's disappointing that you failed to do the easy thing of not getting him reelected. Commissioner Fiedler, you told me many months before the election that you would be supporting Stephanie McBride. Why didn't you say that louder? It was a really easy race to win. Miguel lost by 80 votes, the smallest margin of any Democrat in the county. Even Tracy Loretson, who was in a three-way race and ran in a way smaller campaign, managed to win by several hundred votes. Could have easily avoided this embarrassment to the county, not to mention the loss of productivity from the office, by endorsing the person you thought who would have done a better job. You failed to do so. One tiny thing, there are typos on today's initial copy of the meeting agenda. Each item was numbered 1. Yeah, it's petty to complain about typos, but the BOCC has been repeatedly reminded of their sloppy communication, and they continue to harm trust and lose faith in the public by failing to do the easy thing, which is to establish a process for communicating with the public. Lastly, the BOCC has made tragically small gains in the area of affordable housing because they failed to do the easy thing of following best practices and listening to housing experts in the community. When hiring a housing director, representatives from the Leadville Housing Authority, the Lake County Housing Coalition, the City of Leadville, and even your own staff unanimously recommended one candidate to move on to the next round, and yet the county decided to hire a person who wasn't qualified for the job. Our hospital, our school district, and our local businesses are being hurt by this decision because housing is the leading cause of the labor shortage here in Lake County. We pay good wages, but without a place to live, we can't support our employees, and in failing to establish better housing practices, the BOCC has made citizens' lives worse and has diminished the quality of services available. I hope that in the future, the BOCC will consider doing easy things sooner and for the sake of all citizens of Lake County. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
Can I ask a question as a public comment, or do I just make statements?
just make statements, but you're welcome to do so if you'd like to.
But I could ask a couple of,
It doesn't mean that we would answer them, but we would take them into consideration,
Okay,
and
so-
if staff is needed to be assigned to,
may I?
yeah,
I
you
think
can
these should
have,
be simple since we
you
have
can-
a lawyer.
you can take your 3 minutes now if you'd like to, Max.
I'm Max Kahn. I live in Eagles Nest. I'm here today because of the centering of our county assessor. I heard about this a couple of days ago and I was concerned about it. In reading this statement, I have some specific questions. How did the Lake County Board of Commissioners determine under the Colorado Constitution, Section 19, Section 1, Ethics in Government, which lays out a independent ethics commission? Was that commission used for this?
I'm not going to
Okay.
provide answers to your question. I'm happy if you'd like to email me your questions to provide responses to them.
Oh, yeah, that's
Okay,
I'll
so
just do
you're,
that.
so you're good?
That's
Okay.
that's really all. I just have some questions on the justifications in the law of what seems to be the goal here, which is Section 2, which is barring him from being able to come to the county offices, which kind of by default makes you unable to do your job.
Okay.
I will just offer though that, trust me, it was fully vetted and researched.
Oh, I'm
and all
sure,
the
yeah.
steps that were taken were well within the.
I just, public comment
Sure.
to Jamie's point of transparency.
Okay. There's no other public comment on the Zoom that I have in the chat or any hands raised, so with that, we'll go ahead and move on. So we're heading into new business now. New business is number 1, Resolution 22-26, a resolution censoring Lake County Assessor Miguel Martinez. And I am the lead on this presentation. Okay, so the Board of County Commissioners were made aware of, in part by Commissioner Fiedler's participation in an altercation between the assessor and his staff on November 28th. And in reviewing the lines of follow-up that we can undertake with an elected official, this was one course of action that was brought to our attention by legal. The county's responsibility is to protect its property and its greatest assets, which in this case are our employees. And so we felt like it was necessary to go down this road. So Commissioner Fiedler, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, maybe just add in my view, elected officials have a lot of leeway in how they conduct their statutory authorities. That's not what's at issue in what Commissioner Marcella just mentioned. That BOCC in the county has a duty to provide a safe work environment for all staff, no matter what department they work in or who heads that department. And from what I witnessed, directly and had to physically intervene in the matter of circumstance here, I think we had to take these measures to protect not just the staff in the assessor's office, but in other parts of this and other buildings. So that is why we are here. And sorry, if I could just add one thing I forgot to say there. It's not just a duty for a safe work environment in general, but also I think an affirmative duty to protect staff from retaliation. In this case, as everyone knows, assessor staff was an electoral opponent of the current assessor. Retaliation for that is something we have to protect those staff against.
Chris, do you want to talk about the open meetings and the?
Yeah, what I can share in terms of to the extent anyone's concerned that the BOCC took action outside of or not in compliance with the open meetings law. The Board of County Commissioners has the authority to, has the obligation for day-to-day oversight of the facilities and the staff. And that is expressly excluded from coverage under the Open Meetings Act. So the way this was handled and the way it's presented today is the only action they took in terms of this resolution that's before them today. So that's why it's on the agenda for today instead of being issued outside of the public meeting.
Commissioner Mutch, do you have anything to add?
I'd also just like to offer that there were multiple attempts to connect with the assessor and offer and request to have the conversation with us before taking this approach, and we did not get a response.
Okay. Tim, do you have anything to add before we move on?
Sure, just that Lake County government is making a transition to being a professional organization. Creating a toxic workplace and retaliation is unacceptable by anyone. So I support the board in making this motion and making our workplace safer.
If I could add also, I mean, and please correct me if I'm like misstating anything in terms of the legal basis, but because this department's headed by an elected official and it was an elected official taking, this behavior, if this was a staff person or a director of a department, we would have HR recourse and mechanisms to deal with that, including termination. We don't have that ability in this situation with an elected official. So we feel that, what is laid out in the censure resolution is the best we can do in terms of being transparent and clear about what's going on, in addition to internal HR steps we have taken, to protect staff.
Okay. So I will read this into the record. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners of Lake County, Colorado, Commissioners find and conclude that during the term of his office, Lake County Assessor Assessor Martinez, while in a position of power, has failed to attend the statutory responsibilities of his office and engaged in conduct in his public and private communications and interactions with county employees, fellow elected officials, and others that have been disparaging, disrespectful, and at times have been perceived as threatening. And whereas the commissioners find and conclude that Assessor Martinez's conduct has violated the following provisions of applicable law and Lake County policy: failure to devote his personal attention to the duties of the office of the assessor as required under Colorado Constitution Article XII, Section 2, and the Assessor's Reference Library Administrative Procedures pursuant to 39-2-1091E CRS, as evidenced by his recurrent and long-term absences from his office and failure to remain engaged with and oversee the operations of his office during such absences. Thus, being in dereliction of his statutory responsibilities as demonstrated by his failure to participate in budget preparations and County Board of Equalization hearings, as well as his refusal to use and the return of county-owned information technology equipment necessary for the performance of his official duties. Violation of the Colorado Constitution, Article XXIX, Section 1, Ethics in Government, and the Lake County Code of Ethics and Professional Standards by engaging in conduct that is in violation of the public trust bestowed upon Assessor Martinez, or that creates a justifiable impression among members of the public that such trust is being violated. Violation of Lake County personnel policies applicable to standards of conduct, political activities, and prohibiting harassment and retaliation against employees and other elected officials for raising concerns regarding Assessor Martinez's conduct and failure to perform his statutory obligations, as evidenced by an altercation that he initiated on November 28, 2022, during which he engaged in abusive conduct made towards staff of the Assessor's Office and Commissioner Fiedler, as well as through threats made during such altercation. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Lake County, Colorado, Section 1, the Commissioners find and conclude by a preponderance of evidence that Assessor Martinez has violated the laws and policies recited above, and therefore Assessor Martinez is hereby censured. Section 2, the Commissioners support and endorse this decision by the Chair with the concurrence of other Commissioners to bar Assessor Martinez from entering county facilities as a result of the altercation that occurred on November 28, 2022. Section 3, the Board of County Commissioners hereby finds, determines, and declares that this resolution is necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the employees and the residents of the County of Lake of the State of Colorado. Section 3, that the provisions recited above shall not be construed as an intent to prevent Assessor Martinez from performing his statutory duties as required. Section 4, this resolution shall become effective upon its adoption. I will entertain a motion if we feel like we are ready for that. Oh yeah, so it should be Section 4 and then Section 5.
Yeah.
So we can make that correction, Chris, before we sign therefore be it resolved, it's 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. So it should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sorry, apparently you didn't get the version
Oh, that's
correcting
okay.
already.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we'll sign that version. Okay. All right.
Get that,
Oh.
yeah.
I'll move to approve resolution 2022-26, a resolution censoring Lake County Assessor Miguel Martinez.
Second,
Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? No?
I do just want to say that I think our lines of communication remain open with the assessor. We certainly have an interest in communicating with Miguel Martinez, as well as understanding, one of our highest concerns at one point was the concern over staff transition, turnover, and coming into evaluation year with a less experienced staff, and that is our direct prerogative as the BOCC and managing our budget, especially under so many projects, constraints, and initiatives going on in the community.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Sarah, and I would agree that our lines are still open to communicate with the assessor if he chooses to do so. We are still welcome to finding a solution that will benefit everyone, and hope that he takes us up on that offer. So, all right, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you very much. Item number 2, a resolution 22-27. A resolution renaming the Recreation Department to the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department. Tim, I'm gonna let you take that first.
Sure. As most people are aware, we've just wrapped up the master planning via the Parks, Rec, and Open Space plan. With that, I think there's an opportunity for the county to continue to evolve and adapt to meet the board's priorities, which include more open space, as well as the management of parks, and then a renewed focus on our recreation facilities. So with this, I think it's proper time to recognize Karen Lewis and Felicia Federico, who have been leading the department for about the past year, and all of the work that they have done, and to truly expand the department to meet the roles that they're already meeting, which is parks, recreation, and open space.
Okay. So I'll read this into the record then. A resolution renaming the Lake County Recreation Department to the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department, or PROS for short. Whereas the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Lake, State of Colorado, is vested with administering the affairs of Lake County, Colorado pursuant to state statutes. And whereas a proposal has been made to change the name of the Recreation Department to the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department, hereinafter referred to together as Department. Whereas the renaming of the department addresses actions being undertaken toward a recognition of certain Lake County operations whereby the department will continue to administer recreation programming, management of recreation facilities, and providing health and wellness opportunities to residents and visitors, while also creating the capacity and the opportunity for the department to oversee other county operations as deemed appropriate by the Board of County Commissioners, as such is related to long-range and strategic planning. And whereas the Board of County Commissioners find that the foregoing proposed name change is consistent with the goals, objectives, policies, and other provisions of the Lake County Comprehensive Plan and Lake County Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, as well as desirous due to changing social values, new planning concepts, or other social and economic conditions. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Section 1, the name of the Recreation Department, shall hereinafter be the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department. Section 2, until such time as existing code provisions and other types of policies are formally changed, reference to the Recreation Department director shall mean the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department. Section 3, this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its adoption. Sarah or Jeff, do either of you have any questions or discussion on the name change for this department?
No, just limited. Just I think it's a great move forward to recognize some of the desires of the community residents, and also some of the increased visitation, and here for recreation, indoors and outdoors that we see. So I think it's a great move. And also I just wanted to thank the staff who've been operating short-staffed for a year,
Mhm.
9 months, really carrying on a huge amount of work, as well as thinking through this shift to sort of expand the scope of the department.
Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Marcella. I'm really excited about this, though it seems like a simple move. It's been, many years of conversations and trying to weave in facility and asset management partnerships across departments, and also establishing institutional knowledge that had typically lived with an elected official regarding open space and partnerships and participation. So nothing is as simple as it seems. This is, we've made other changes with our land use department to incorporate some of that natural resource management and kind of cross training and adding appropriate responsibilities across departments so that there's a redundancy in the knowledge in the county as an institution. So I'm very excited for moving forward. Also, if I might add too, just another step was creating responding to the tourism panel's desire to have a manager position created, so that we could have more direct investment for the protection of the impacts of tourism on the community, which very much has to do with open space and communicating a value of the community to our partners who do a lot of and resource investment. So this is all part of a bigger strategy to really get our arms around the issue of open space and managing our natural resources, visitors, and for our community, of course, alike.
Well, I really appreciate it, and thank you, Tim, for continuing to make progress on the pros plan and making sure that we're incorporating the work that was done there. So I appreciate that. Okay, I will entertain a motion.
Move that we approve resolution 22-27, resolution renaming the recreation department to the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department.
Okay.
Second.
Great. Any further discussion?
No, thank you.
All right. Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Resolution 22-28, a resolution to partner with Colorado Mountain College in applying for and distributing the Colorado Opportunity Scholarship, COSI, 22-23 matching funds scholarship. Is Marjorie with us today, Tim?
Marjorie is not, but my name is Brandy Bays Ballard, and I'm from Colorado Mountain College in placing her.
Okay, perfect. Do you want to just talk us through briefly or quickly the scholarship and the matching funds?
Yeah, so first off, thanks for having us here this morning. So COSI and this resolution is CMC just requesting that partnership for us to apply for the 22-23 allocation. You may be familiar with this. We have partnered together since the inception of COSI in the 2014-2015 academic year. So these scholarships provide support for our Lake County students attending CMC and area campuses. So for this allocation, we have been awarded from the Colorado Department of Higher Education, or CDHE, for about $7,400 for this allocation. At any point in time, we have 3 allocations running simultaneously. So this will replace a previous allocation.
Okay. It's very straightforward to me. We've done this several times before, so I don't have any questions in particular. I don't see a copy of the.
It's the first thing in your packet.
Oh, that's why I didn't see it. Okay. Sorry about that. So this is a resolution to partner with Colorado Mountain College in applying for and distributing the Colorado Opportunity Scholarship, Matching Fund Scholarship. Whereas the state of Colorado through Colorado Opportunity Scholarship, COSI, has provided an opportunity for local counties to apply for scholarship support for students entering post-secondary education, and whereas COSI has required that matching scholarship funds awarded to any county be deposited with and administered by a local representative nonprofit community foundation, and whereas COSI has required that matching scholarship funds will only be awarded to a county in which the student participants are engaged in rigorous student success support program, and whereas the school districts contained either in part or in full within the boundaries of this county are currently participants within the previously funded COSI Vigorous Student Success Support Program, known as the Mountain Futures Fund, and MFF. And whereas MFF was developed in cooperation with Colorado Mountain College CMC and has developed a functional framework for administering grant funds awarded by COSI that is acceptable to COSI and it utilizes local nonprofit community foundations. And whereas COSI has indicated that MFF Vigorous Student Success Support Program, currently funded in part by COSI and in operation at present and provisionally sufficient to meet the requirements of the COSI Matching Scholarship Grant Fund requirements. And whereas the provision of additional scholarship support to offset the cost of attending post-secondary education and Vigorous Student Success Support Program are critical to the continued economic competitiveness of this county. And whereas affordable post-secondary education for the citizens of this county is both a public good and a pathway towards greater individual success and greater economic health for this county. And whereas the citizens of this county have expressed interest in providing affordable and cost-competitive quality post-secondary education for residents of this county, therefore be it resolved that the Lake County Board of County Commissioners approves that CMC apply on their behalf on the behalf of Lake County to COSI for $7,434 in matching scholarship funds through its 2022-2023 grant opportunity, and be it further resolved that the Lake County Board of County Commissioners agrees that the Colorado Mountain College Foundation will be the repository of all by COSI grant initiative and will be responsible for monitoring, distribution, and oversight of these scholarship funds. And be it further resolved that the Lake County Commissioners approves the allocation of all scholarship dollars raised by this 2022-2023 COSI initiative will be first applied to reducing the cost of attendance for eligible Lake County residents to attend CMC pursuant to a formal 4-year degree, technical certificate, or success transfer to another institution post-secondary education. Be it further resolved that if all eligible Lake County residents in the awarding academic year have received the greatest financial aid possible from this award, the Lake County Board of County Commissioners authorizes CMC on its behalf to allocate unspent dollars for eligible residents from other counties participating in this initiative, and its authority covers both current and standing unspent balances provided in past COSI allocations for Lake County. Okay. Any questions, Commissioner Fiedler, Commissioner Mudge?
None for me. As you said, this is a regular routine partnership that we do.
Sure. All right. I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve resolution 22-28, a resolution to partner with Colorado Mountain College and applying for and distributing the Colorado Opportunity Scholarship 2022-2023 Matching Funds Scholarship.
Okay.
Second?
All right. Any further discussion?
None for me.
No,
All right.
thank you.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right, moving on to number 4, consideration of a funding request of $20,000 from the Chafee Housing Trust for affordable housing work in Lake County. Tim, you are the lead on this, so I will hand it over to you.
Sure. So the Chafee Housing Trust is a local nonprofit, a community housing development organization that has assisted Lake County in developing community housing here. Since the Chafee Housing Trust has a large presence for us in the county this year and for next year, they had a request that matches the request that they do in Chafee County. So Chafee requested $20K from Chafee County and then $10K each from Salida and Buena Vista. So they made a similar request to the city of Leadville and to Lake County. The city of Leadville has approved the $10,000 request. So the request before you today is for $20,000. And this provides operations and administrative funding for the Chafee Housing Trust. which will go to some matching funds as they seek other grants, but then also to 2 FTEs salaries on there. Next year, we are hopeful that the Leadville Urban Renewal Authority parcel will begin to go vertical with the Chafee Housing Trust. So that will develop 12 new homes at 100% AMI or less, which is a good thing for us as we move forward down our path of tackling our affordable housing crisis in the community. So it is, I would recommend that we do fund this request of $20,000. However, I'd be remiss if I did not remind the commissioners that the project at the Lura parcel, I believe the total project cost is 4.8 million, about there. I do not know what the gap funding amount will be for that parcel. You know, just using the best estimate I have from Parkville Water District, the tap fees and sanitation district, the tap fees will be about $218,000. I do not know what future requests will be from the Chafee Housing Trust, but I would encourage, you know, further collaboration with the city of Leadville and the Lura board on actually truly understanding their finances and the objective of actually building this home, because the county doesn't have $4.8 million to give in 2023 for 12 units.
Commissioner Mudge, do you have a question?
I don't have a question. I just have, excuse me. I think our focus is on our regional housing authority. And while I've yet to circle back and try to address a misunderstanding or a narrative that I understand has been created against or claiming that I am against housing trusts, that is not the case, but I do think it's worth observing, as is our duty as elected officials, observing behavior and anticipating behavior and really looking at our financial position for the projects that are in our queue. And, you know, as we have been stating to many folks, you participate, there's likely some reciprocity of your contribution to a project. And I really don't, I don't think that, well, I'd rather put our funds towards our regional housing authority. And I also am not sure what the city's contributions have been. Never mind our own contributions through our URA, the URA boundary revenues.
Commissioner Feder, do you have any?
I mean, just wanted to echo that. Like, to me, I just want to make sure, and maybe this can be relayed to the housing trust in a collegial way. That we do have a regional housing authority. A lot of work by the city and county and other stakeholders went into creating that. So let's just make sure we're all playing together here to solve the county-wide problem.
Yeah.
And also, Tim, I appreciate your point about, I mean, that subsidy gap. You know, the lower you drive AMIs, the bigger that subsidy gap goes. You just because you label something affordable housing doesn't make it cheaper to build. That gap has to come from somewhere. So I appreciate your heads up on that. And thank you for that.
Yeah, I just really am conflicted about taking potential resources away from our own housing authority. Especially when I don't understand the relationship between CHT and our regional housing authority yet at this point. Sarah, with you being the representative, I don't know if you can, or Tim, speak to that a little bit. But I think if we were gonna give $20,000 to housing, I'd rather do it to the regional housing authority where all of our land is held. And work is going towards. Sarah, I don't know if you have any.
I mean, there's not, you know, the Chafee Housing Trust has come into the community well in advance of, you know, our serious contemplation over the creation of our housing authority and dedicating significant funds. Though we have made really significant efforts over the last few years. And I just, you know, they were the only responder to a RFP for the URA board's parcel. And in my mind, it would be most ideal if the housing authority was the first stop you know, in shopping for a partner and also managing any leasing or rental management. So I anticipate if there are other reasons for a housing trust to be a better fit, that is a conversation rather than leverage to potential partners. I have real concern over some of the things I've heard in the last few meetings and things that have been presented to potential partners with some what I perceive as misinformation. I'd also like to see the city or the URA, and yes, maybe not, or purposefully confusing the two. It is city council, but I think that Tim alluded to it a little bit too. I think the city's jumped in many projects without long-term strategic financial planning, and I'd rather allow them to go forward with their projects, and we, you know, save all the pennies we can to make ours work, because we have significant things in our queue.
Chris, am I allowed? Should I take Jamie's comment
In terms of.
on this agenda item?
It's up to you, but typically we take public comment on the
Yeah.
agenda items.
Board members, would you be okay with Jamie providing us with a comment on this agenda item?
I'm fine with that. I think
Okay, go ahead, Jamie.
Thank you, Chair and fellow commissioners. I just want to offer that one of the things that the JV Housing Trust is doing is actually developing housing units, which is something that I think they will be doing on that Laura parcel more quickly than the Regional Housing Authority. This feels like a pretty small amount of money, but since they already have the wheels in motion and they have the actual plot, if this helps grease the skids for getting even those 12 units online sooner, I think this is a good use of county money. And I also wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the future funds that are going to the Regional Housing Authority get given to CHD at a date future because they are part of this project. So I think it's a good move to give them cash now if that's possible.
Okay, thanks.
And if I could just, I mean, Sarah Mudge raised to me a good point. I mean, JP Housing Trust has worked for years in the community. You know, this isn't sort of a new undertaking. You know, so I don't know if there's like an urgency to approving this. It does seem like there are some questions, and maybe we could have some discussion or even like a work session with them. I don't want to bog things down for $20,000. I don't know if there was like a pending grant application they need this answer from.
I don't think so. I think this is just the monies will be used to fund 2 full-time employees.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it would be worthwhile for us to have a work session with CHT and the Regional Housing Authority, just to talk through that. I mean, but 2 full-time employees seems pretty straightforward to me too.
Yeah. I mean,
Sarah, what are your thoughts?
That would be fine. I mean, I think there are definitely a lot more answers or questions and conversation to have over the role in the community and the project.
Can we table this to our 20th meeting and ask Reed to come?
Of course.
Is anybody
good.
opposed to that? Sarah, Jeff, are you opposed to that?
That sounds good, and maybe it would help smooth out some of the questions being raised here.
Yeah. Sarah, are you okay with that? Okay, so we'll table this till the 20th and come back to that and see if Reed can join us on the 20th. If not, maybe we can make an accommodation with a work session with him and Regional Housing Authority. Okay, number 5, consideration of a consent to sublease Mount Massive Golf Course to the Leadville Cross Country Ski Council for winter operations at the golf course. So the leads on this are Claire McKeever and Dirk Rasmussen. So Claire and Dirk, if you guys want to take it away.
Sure. Yeah, you can just Claire's joining us virtually. I'm here,
Sure.
obviously. Just a quick update since our working session on November 22nd. We've been actively collaborating with the golf course board. We've been out and we've marked the trails. We've had several conversations that have generated comments or revisions to the proposal that you all have. The latest revisions were provided by Betsy and Chris last night. Claire and I have incorporated those and redirected those to you all. At this point, I'll speak for our board. We're comfortable with the terms of the proposal and would like to proceed with that.
Okay.
If there are more specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I don't think that I have anything specific at this point other than designating county representatives. I don't know how many you want us to designate.
I think that would be best served as Karen and Fee,
Okay.
to receive any complaints had, and then since they've worked with you on the staffing models and things.
Great.
They'll be the perfect
Super.
resource for you.
Okay.
And yeah, one thing I'd say is, yeah, we did receive Claire's email, I think it was something like 8 o'clock last night with the revised version. I don't know that Tim has had a chance to look through it. Clearly, I didn't see any major issues with it, so my recommendation would be to approve the consent. It's actually pending on the agenda today, pending final legal review, so we can get that and then get the standard sublease document in place as well.
Okay.
And then there might be others who would like to approach it differently.
Sure.
Betsy, I know you're here, I didn't know if there was, if you'd had a chance to review the revised version that was sent last night as well.
Revised version. I haven't presented it to the board, our board, but all the changes before that were reviewed by the board and approved, so,
And to be clear, the only changes that were made were ones you requested. So
and Chris.
and Chris, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I don't seem to have any further questions. Really, it seemed pretty straightforward. Sarah, did you have an opportunity to look at the document?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I do appreciate the Nordic group being so amenable and working with the golf course. They could have taken a route to possibly cheaper routes, but I think everybody had interest in seeing Nordic happen. I do still think that we need some numbers on the clubhouse water use, and have discovered through this process that the county needs to submit for a new permit that is appropriately titled for commercial use. So that will be an expense of ours. And, you know, I would have loved to have had the chance to maybe incorporate that or into this conversation with, you know, investing some of those funds into, or golf course funds into getting the appropriate permitting in place with the division.
Okay. I don't really have any other questions on this.
Yeah, I don't, maybe just comment. I mean, thanks for everyone for working through this. It's been a bumpy road at times, so appreciate us getting here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate that.
Okay, I will entertain a motion.
Also, this, just to note, this was for the single season, correct? And our conversations will continue with the golf course on our master leasing and sublease conditions. That's been part of the conversation in the past with everyone, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the consent that is before you is for this season, if you will, so that it'll give us the time to work with the Mountain Massive Golf Club and the ski council to make sure that going forward, everybody's literally on the same page.
Okay. Great, good question, Sarah, thank you. All right,
So I move that we consent to the sublease between Mount Massive Golf Course and the Leadville Cross Country Ski Council for winter operations in the 2022-23 season at the golf course, pending further legal review.
okay.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion on the table?
None for me.
All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Moving into number 6, consideration of a contract with Cloud City Conservation Center in the amount of $40,000 to improve waste diversion in Lake County. So we have Tim and Emily Olson, the Executive Director of Cloud City Conservation Center, with us to present this contract to us. So I'll let you guys take it away.
So just for background, the county normally contributes $40,000 to C4. So this year, Emily had proposed changing that into a contract. So I took the full amount of the 40K and turned it into a contract, but based on further discussion with Emily, we're gonna change that amount to a smaller amount. And then there's some adjustments to the scope of work for increasing waste diversion in the county.
So we typically in our annual request to the county, around 5,000 of that $40,000 request goes to our zero waste work at C4. And we would love to, typically that work has been our composting program and our zero waste services that we provide to local events such as Boom Days and the Race Series. And we would be willing to increase that amount to 10,000 of our 40,000 request to support the county and the Public Works Department in both addressing some of the issues with the recycling program, educating community members, and helping to staff some of the recycling drop-offs so that we can educate community members as they're dropping items off. You shared that contract with them. So I think we're open to anything that is on the scope of services. But outside of that $10,000 range, we would have to look at significantly increasing our staffing as an organization, which we're very open to doing and we are planning to do in the next few years. But we don't, next year our plan for zero waste is that we're bringing on an AmeriCorps service member who would help provide these services to the county. And so beyond that, we have not budgeted for additional staff time. So I think that was kind of where the miscommunication was with Tim, but we are open to anything within that scope of services.
Okay.
And then our annual request for our other programming, was that?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. I don't know what you have, but I think one thing that I would throw out there that I think I sent an email to Tim on is the county has actually agreed to match, or the city has agreed to match the county's contribution to our energy rebate program. And so typically the county has given us $10,000 for that program, $6,000 of which goes to staff time and $4,000 of which goes to rebates, which are passed directly on to Lake County community members. With the city funds, that would give us $8,000 to distribute this year. And we're in the process of evaluating what things we provide rebates for to make them more accessible to Lake County residents. This is our only pool of funding that the only requirement is that you own or rent a home in Lake County. There's no financial piece attached to it. We have about $90,000 secured for low-income households next year. And so we're trying to up the funding that we have for everyone in Lake County. I would propose, I think our energy program is another place where we could move to a statement of work versus a grant contribution. And if the county is willing to do that, C4 is willing to flip the funding, so we would put $6,000 to rebates and $4,000 to staff time.
Okay.
And then with the match from the city, that would give us $10,000, which is a huge bump up for that program and the amount we can pass on to community members.
Okay. I don't really have any questions right now. Sarah, do you have questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was trying to have a hard time following. Emily, do you leverage the donation for those rebates with any other grant funding through the project? And how is that directly related to that kind of condition, the program you run to improve home conditions and do projects like that?
So the rebates themselves, which are funds that we pass on to community members who either do a home energy audit or make improvements to their homes. Those are really hard funds for us to raise elsewhere other than city and county government. That is how they are funded across the state at other conservation centers, because there's no like financial piece attached to them. And so that's why we really rely on the city and county to fund the rebates that we pass on. However, those funds are then lumped in with the remainder of our energy program. And so they are leveraged to help us access other funding. If it's not a dollar per dollar match per se, but it does help us fund our energy work and energy program as a whole, which I will say, since we have brought in our programs to help pay past due utility bills, we now enroll low-income households in free community solar. We help households access care and weatherization improvements to their homes, and we have our own energy emergency fund. This past year, we served a total of 130 households through all of those programs, and in 2020, which was the last year we just did energy rebates, we only served 20 households. So that program has grown significantly, and we're partnering with the Lake County Housing Coalition to really make sure that we are using these funds to help address some of the affordable housing issues that our community is facing. And so actually in 2023, the project that was mentioned with the Chiefy Housing Trust, C4 will be using some of our energy assistance fund to help low-income families to help provide solar for the rail yard units. And that means those households will significantly reduce their energy costs, and it will help keep those units affordable.
Okay.
Emily, in all those, sorry, excuse me, in all those programs, thank you. How we would love to also prioritize our seniors in the community and build a better relationship with the senior center for connecting C4 with folks that might need assistance. How does that relate to the programs that you're doing, or those rebates? Can those rebates be used to, I mean, you're offering a rebate for money already expended. If there isn't the finances to do those projects, how do you go about that to help?
Our Energy Assistance Fund, which is available right now to anyone that makes below 100% of our area median income, that program we can help households with between $1,000 to $2,000 for health, safety, and energy issues in their homes. And we actually only pay those funds directly to contractors or to purchase building materials. We don't, for that program, we don't reimburse individuals. And so if a family is eligible for that, they would actually, if the project is within that $2,000 limit, they would have no out-of-pocket expense. And for our rebate program, I would say we have not had anyone approach us about having the money up front, but we would always be open to that. And with the senior center, we have reached out to them as a community partner to share our programs, just like we reach out to all of the various nonprofits and county agencies that are serving Lake County community members to make sure that they're aware that these resources exist.
Okay. I don't really have any further questions. Do you have a question?
I mean, I was just going to add a comment that I really appreciate. That I think, if I'm understanding it right, like this move towards rather than in the past just having like a lump sum that kind of went into unrestricted funds, if you will, or core funds, like blending it a bit more, where we still do some of that, but also have some clearer work areas delineated in a scope of work. I like that because I think it's clearer for you and it's clearer for us, in the sense of like, what are we getting for our money, if you will. And I also think it's clearer when you're working as C4 and when you're sort of working as a official partner or even agent of the county on some initiative, which you've been doing in some cases. So I like the direction this is headed, and I apologize for not helping it happen sooner.
No, I would agree to that. I think it's really beneficial, and I think it demonstrates a strong partnership. So I'm really excited for this to be in place. So I don't have any further questions. Commissioner Much, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, so seeing none, we'll move on. Hold on just a second, you guys. I will entertain a motion to approve the contract with Cloud City Conservation Center.
I'll second.
Any further discussion, Sarah?
No, thanks.
All right, seeing none, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, the professional services agreement has been drafted to go with the scope of work once it's finalized.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's finalized yet based on this discussion, so my suggestion would be to approve it pending final legal review so they can get all of those parts in place.
Okay, so I will revise my motion to include pending final legal review.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion, Commissioner Mush?
Just a comment, Emily, I really appreciate you reaching out to the senior center and, you know, those folks that definitely take some consistent, outreach and communication to reach all of our seniors. So, I know when we all had gone to lunch the other week, that was one of the big questions too on energy efficiency coming into the winter. So, would love to, I think all of us would love to, help connect those folks to C4. And even just having some of your materials out there, if you have promotional materials, would be helpful. So would love to connect. Thank you.
Thank you all for your continued support. I just want to say thank you to my board members that came, even though they didn't get to speak.
All right, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much, Emily, we appreciate it. Okay, so number 7 is consideration of an American Rescue Plan Act funding to St. George Episcopal Church and community meals in the amount of $150,000. This request is being led by Amy Frickholm, so I will hand it over to you, Amy, to walk us through it.
All right, I'll do my best. I'm coming in a little late on the subject, and I wasn't here for the initial discussions, but my understanding is that in 2021, in maybe in a work session, in some kind of formal setting, the county committed to using ARPA funds for St. George Episcopal Church's food pantry and community meals program, and then our administrative assistant left, and then this year we realized that we had never received those funds. So I'm assuming that something kind of broke down along the way, but I just wanted to go back to it. So we run a food pantry and a 4-time-a-week community meal. This year we've experienced kind of extraordinary food cost increases, which you probably also experienced in your own household. And it hits us in 2 ways. One is that as food prices increase, more people come to the food pantry looking for access to healthy food. And then of course, the money we pay for healthy food also increases. So we get kind of a double impact. So that's our request, is that I believe it's $50,000 a year for 3 years. Then $25,000 goes to food costs and $25,000 to personnel. And we have 2 part-time employees who run this work. Okay. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to speak to anything.
Sure. Sarah, do you have anything initially?
In reviewing our notes, Amy was right, an informal work session with the city on splitting these requests potentially. And in my notes, we had discussed potentially entertaining that request for 1 year because we had not gone through all of our ARPA funds to come up with a larger strategy on allocating those. That's all that can be enough today, but just bringing that up.
Sure. Commissioner Fiedler, do you have anything?
I don't have anything to add. My notes were less clear than that.
Yeah, mine too.
That sounds like general.
Yeah.
No official record.
Yeah. But I do recall that meeting, the joint meeting, and yes. I think, it was substantive, but it wasn't a formal decision, by the BOCC at that point. So.
Okay. I think since we haven't actually gotten through all of our ARPA funding yet, I would be okay with giving $50,000 to backfill the 2022 expenses or provide for 23, and then go through that ARPA funding in detail and determine if we're able to fund more.
that sounds like a good path, and not to leave St. George's and the good work you're doing hanging, but just for us to get our own. We have a long list of potential.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And more that have come in since that.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense to me. I mean,
Okay.
I'd rather that St. George was part of a comprehensive plan
Yeah.
for seeing the health and welfare of the community, you know.
Yeah.
So, that sounds great.
Okay. Commissioner Mudge, do you feel like that's appropriate?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I also just, last time I think a larger group was from St. George was in, making some requests. We had a conversation about, any assistance and partnership to better promote and talk through, benefits available through our Department of Human Services. At that point, we were told that, folks at St. George didn't care to talk about that, bring it up, didn't want to promote that. That wasn't the environment, that St. George wanted to create as for the community. I'm wondering if there's I'd love to revisit that conversation to really make sure that folks, it doesn't have to be an in-your-face kind of effort, but I would really like to know that St. George folks understand what is available and are able to connect patrons with appropriate benefits or other resources.
Sure.
Yeah, I think we're happy to continue that conversation. I don't really know the substance of the previous one, so I can't really speak to it, but there's nothing that there's no red flag for me.
Okay, well, that's good to hear, because I think you were actually the person who told me in the meeting that you.
I don't think so, because first time I've been, but
yeah.
But who knows? We can.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Okay, so Tim, can you please schedule for us a work session with St. George's and maybe DHS and talk about that?
Sure.
That would be great. Okay.
And this is Janine, just real quick. I am on. We can definitely have Nancy go over there, and especially during the food bank drop-offs or community meals, we can have her go over there for application assistance anytime.
Well, thank you, Janine.
Great. There's a way that you guys can arrange how that should look. That would be fantastic.
Cool. Well, I motion that we award $50,000 to St. George's Episcopal Church of our ARPA funding for the purposes of their food bank. And we will revisit the conversation at a later date.
I will second.
Okay. Commissioner Mudge, do you have anything else to discuss?
No, thank you.
All right. Any further discussion?
None for me.
None from the other. Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Okay. Okay, up next, we have a discussion of a funding request from St. Vincent Hospital. Does everybody want to keep going, or do you want a 5-minute break? It's up to you. You guys do?
I could just get some fresh water. It's a
That'd be
2-minute
great.
break.
Okay, we'll take 2 minutes and we'll reconvene at between 12:20 and 12:25. So that'd be great. Sarah, are you there? Okay. We are ready. So we'll move on to item number 8, which is the discussion of funding request for $480,000 to St. Vincent Hospital District. And this will be led by Kelly Johnson, the CFO for the St. Vincent Hospital District. So Kelly, I will turn this over to you.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. So the goal and objective of today's conversation is to support us with our 90-day game plan to allow for the organization to make the necessary changes to become financially solvent. This ask means that we'll work closely with the county on changes to our organization to be able to still offer services needed for our community, but it will also be based on sound financial decisions, true needs of our local community, as well as lean-based operations, meaning that we're evaluating every service line that is offered as it relates to the financial feasibility of our organization. We want our patient service team to get paid for the work that they're doing and to retain our team, and that's ultimately where the ask is coming from today. And so we know that we're in a cash flow crisis and that there's going to be attrition with our team as it relates to that. But what I'm concerned about is what the hurt would do to this county and what we would be losing as a result of the hurt of losing these patient and clinical care teams and keeping them local. To kind of give you a background on the financial opportunity or hurdle that we are facing is that it started back in late 2021, and there was lots of management decisions that were made that dealt with issues that created the cash flow crisis. Things such as taking over operations of a clinic without getting proper credentialing for billing and insurance purposes, which means the revenue, we essentially gave away free services without being able to bill for those services. They used repayable COVID relief funds intended to offset operations to purchase equipment for the hospital. And as a result, those monthly Medicare payments were reduced significantly in 2022 to repay those funds. And there's other things that that was done, including inappropriate increasing of the size of management staff, retention of a CFO at a rate of $480,000 a year that mismanaged the financial operations, and a failure to properly implement a new financial management system. As a result, though, the team has made significant strides over the last 2-3 months. We've had a huge change in senior leadership as well as a change in approach in terms of our service lines. We've already closed down the service lines that are not functioning appropriately for our business, meaning we've closed down the physical therapy or behavioral health clinics that were off campus, located in a completely different county that did not serve this population. We've ended our agreement with the Genetics Institute, as well as met with each individual department to talk about their individual impact as it relates to the budget. That includes everything from staffing conversations from management, high-level management, which we've reduced, to analyzing our supply costs and working through our revenue cycle. Due to the lack of the original financial statement audit and the cost report, the Medicare cost-based reimbursement has been severely lagging for our organization. We do know once the cost report is filed that those things will change, and that is going to be the biggest part of our plan. However, myself included in this, I was brought on 10 weeks ago. A lot has happened in the 10 weeks, but there's still a lot of changes that need to be made. And we want to make sure that our employees that have done the work are going to get paid. As a result, we've put together a budget and a projection over the next year as it relates to getting this financially solvent. And we've made some drastic changes to that effect, but we have more coming, meaning we're looking at our revenue sourcing opportunities. For an example, with our family health center, we've gone through the process of getting the rural healthcare center designation. Once that goes into effect, our Medicare reimbursement will go from $68 per visit up to $113 per visit. That's $167,000 in additional revenue by doing nothing other than honoring our agreement to Medicare and the certification that we've gone after. We've also been kept out of other incentive payments and other revenue projection opportunities as it relates to incentives from payers because we have not been able to measure the information as it relates to quality metrics. So we've changed our revenue cycle management process, eliminated some third-party contracts that were poorly dropped into to be able to maximize reimbursement for services we are already running, meaning that when we provide patient care to specific patients, we weren't getting paid for everything that we were doing by payers. And by simply changing our revenue cycle capture process, we've been able to look at increasing our revenue. However, all of this has a lag, and that is ultimately why we're coming to you today. When you make revenue cycle changes, it takes 90 to 120 days to see that as financial effects hit your organization. On the expense cycle side, we've done some drastic changes as well. In salary and wages, you can see if you were to look at our budget from our budget hearing that was public last week, our salary and wage costs have drastically gone up due to past leadership and management. However, we're projected to have it start coming back down as a result of the decisions I've already shared with you, but more to come. And what I mean by that is reanalyzing our productivity by FTE in each individual department and making sure that we are serving the patients that need to be served, as well as paying and compensating respectively. And so we have projected changes in that area. The other things that we've done is negotiated changes in our benefits management as it relates to benefits going forward for our team. We originally were given a quote for substantially higher costs. And so as a direct result, we were able to renegotiate and get those costs reduced. We also know that there is still some professional fee component, meaning services that we have to pay for outside of St. Vincent to fill internal roles. What I mean by that is like our emergency doctors, myself, our CEO, we're all interim. Our goal is for us, meaning myself and the CEO, to phase out and replace us with permanent CEO and CFO. But we do still have working relationships with outside providers to be able to provide the patient care that is needed by our community. And so there are some opportunities in those negotiations for next year as it relates to billing, meaning that the current structure that we're in right now relates to just paying accounts payable or a vendor invoice. However, there's ways to look at restructuring the billing for them to have a different billing model, reducing our cost to our facility while also maximizing the revenue for the services that they're rendering in the emergency department. We also saw that there's been some huge increase in essential supply costs as it relates to COVID and the increases, as well as a lack of true streamlined spending control. And so as a direct result, we've put in together and put in place internal controls to where the purchasing and materials management department is approving all pre-purchase spend, as well as changes as to the vendors, meaning negotiation with those vendors. Overall, all of this comes to say that our ask for you guys is to support us to get through this 90 days as we continue to rectify the situation that we've been put in. We understand that it's a huge ask. We also know that the county really needs to have services as it relates to medical care for our patients and our community, and we want to be able to offer that. We are determining which services are the most viable for our organization as it relates to the patients and the demographic of our local area. And at the same time, we are asking in advance an intergovernmental agency agreement as it relates to our ambulance service income for this $480,000. I will turn it over to the St. Vincent team that is present at this time to add any additional commentary and then answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
So I'm Randy Thompson. I'm a CNO. Beside me is Kat Fry, CEO, Jim Morrison, Materials Management Contracts, and then Karen Onderdock back here, who is our Branding and Marketing Officer. What we realized over the past year is there's a lot of opportunities on our billing, as Kelly mentioned, on our billing and revenue cycle, and on capturing charges for services rendered. As she stated also, we identified in an administrative change this fall that we were doing a lot of services outside Lake County that it was a lot of money to put out and not necessarily beneficial to the residents of Lake County. What we're focusing on now is our services that are immediate to the citizens of Lake County and our assistance with the race series and our involvement in that. So as Kelly stated, we're asking for an advance on the ambulance agreement to sustain us. And as she works through our finances and our cost report, this is our ask of today.
Go ahead.
I'd like to add just that you guys have known me for a long time. We have operated a hospital that was in the black. And I'm feeling good, I'm feeling confident that we can get back to that. And I just want us to remember that time when we did operate and we were approved by the USDA to build a new hospital. We went through the feasibility study, we went through all of that process. And we need to get back to that.
You know, if I could just say something, Kayla, Jeff, Sarah. You know, I've been in this room many times, and probably none more important than the one I'm here for today. I've really been lucky. I've had the opportunity to act as a county commissioner at times. I've had the opportunity to work in Leadville. I've had many opportunities that most people never had here. Most people had to leave and never come back. And thank you. I thank everyone for having me here. And I really tell you that when I was sitting there, one of the most important things I always thought of was you really don't have a community unless you have a strong hospital, a strong school district. We have all those things going right now. And as Karen said, we proved it 3 years ago that we could come back into the black being way down and bring it back in and show the USDA that we could actually build a hospital. And they were astounded at that, and so were we. There are many things that happened between then and now that basically ran it really quickly into the ground. From that standpoint, I know we can be back and do that again. I know that, you know, having a hospital up here is so important, especially to so many people that have stuck around here. You know, your grandfather and I had a great time building all that stuff out front. And this is Kayla's grandfather. He was always a great supporter of mine and always willing to give advice and tell us how wonderful, you know, the place was and how proud of it he was also. And that's why he put his mining car out front there too. I don't want to see that go away. I mean, the last thing we need to lose in this community is anything. I think we're building it back to the point where we have so many great amenities. We have race series. We have, you name it, that's coming back into this town right now. And the one most important ingredient, in my opinion, is this hospital. So please take that into consideration. Our ask may be large. Our need is large. And thank you for allowing us to be here today.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And if I can add to that, I was nowhere near the history that Jim and Karen have here in town. I've been here just 6 months. Randy and I had the opportunity to start here in June, just a couple days apart. And what has really impressed me about the town of Leadville and Lake County is the opportunity and the potential here and the people. I can't tell you how impressed I've been as a nurse for almost 30 years and a leader for probably 20 of those years in healthcare. We have some of the most amazing team members that care for patients just like they're their own family. A week doesn't go by that I've been here that I have not encountered a family member of a patient who shared a story with me. I think that what we come here to ask for today, as we've all said, is large, but the ramifications of not asking for that means that our team of caregivers that support this hospital, this community with their healthcare needs would go without being paid. So that's why I'm here today. That's why we're here today. We believe in this organization. We know that Kelly's plan is strong and that when we get through the next 90 days, we'll be much better than we were. And we just want to get through this very short time so that everyone is whole. Thank you so much for your time. Okay. So it's correct to say that the money is for payroll expenses for the next 90 days. Is that correct? Yeah?
Correct.
Yes, that'll cover us. Okay. Commissioner Mudge, do you have anything?
I mean, I think at some point it'd be nice, Commissioner Marcel, if you gave a little bit of a history of how we've been here before, upon request to the hospital. But I do want to say that I am very pleased to see the actions of the board finally. I think concerns have been brought to us, and the board is not, the St. Vincent's Hospital board has not really taken a lot of action. So I am appreciative that folks like Kelly and John are here, and the team over there is really working to look at things. But I think we should get into, just some better understanding of what all this means, what Medicare services, could public health provide? What are the assets? Was there any consideration to, sell any of these big pieces of equipment that may still not be used, although I know Karen mentioned at community coffee that the designation or the testing or something is in place to have those. I'm very curious about other options that have been pursued. And I think we have some thoughts or concerns on the legality of, loaning or gifting. And we should talk through that as well.
Could I answer her question? Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay, so you bring up great questions, Commissioner Mudge. I really appreciate you bringing them to the table today. So there's a couple things. We've explored a lot of options. I spent the last couple weeks on the phone with the state, talking with them about reimbursement as it relates to the provider fee, additional funding through the rural process, as well as the Colorado Hospital Association is supporting us in the evaluation of individual service lines. The hard part is because we are a quasi-governmental district as it relates to Tabor, as it relates to our mill levy, there are lots of limitations as to our approach on filling the short-term funding gap. One being is we can't go get a short-term loan. Loans are prohibited by Tabor without going to the voters first. And with the urgency around our request, that is something that's not available to us. I have been working with our council, and our council met with your attorney earlier today as it relates to the ambulance fee. Because the ambulance fee is for services rendered, and hence the reason why the approach has been come from the intergovernmental agreement as an advance on the ambulance fee and not in relation to any other items. So it's not a loan, it's not something to that effect. It's an advance for services to be rendered in the future. And then the other thing is this relates to your equipment question. That is actually something we've been evaluating, and Jim has been a great support. There's a couple pieces of equipment we are working on the disposition of. However, lease agreements were signed by previous administration, locking a lot of our equipment into what's called a lease back program. And that lease back program locks us into a 5-year commitment, as well as monies was received on that lease back program as it relates to those assets as collateral. The other piece with assets as it relates to our USDA funding is our USDA feasibility study pledged certain assets as it relates to our USDA loan. And so we can't just go sell assets without getting USDA approval. So it's put us in a very unique situation as it relates to revenue sources, because in any other small business, we would go find a short-term loan, we would be selling assets, we would be doing a whole bunch of things. But because we're governmentally driven and have all of these other compliance requirements, we're very, very limited on those options. What we have done, because that's all the negative side effects, I do want to share with you some of the things we have been working on. We did work with Medicare, and we did receive a Medicare advance as it relates to claims that they have yet to pay us for. So Medicare has held up about 132 claims, and so as a result, we did get an advance payment from Medicare for those claims to be billed. The state is going to be looking to a result of this conversation after the end of today as it relates to what their position is as to support. They've been they don't understand our community and our community needs as well, which is why we came to you as the commissioners, because you guys know the needs of the community best. And then the other things that we are exploring is continuing to reduce spend and continue to cancel contracts that are not serving the organization. I can't count the number of contracts that our organization was tied into that have been canceled. What that does not do, though, is does not stop us from having to pay them for past services rendered.
Okay, Tim, do you have anything? And then.
Sure. Just for background, and I shared this with Kelly yesterday. I used to work at HICPUF. So I worked there about 6 years ago. 6 years ago, we used St. Vincent Hospital as a policy example on how to decommission a hospital because of how bad the finances were. Fast forward to me getting this job last year and living on West 4th Street and taking my dog on a walk, and holy shit, you have a brand new facility. How did you guys do that? So from my perspective, it's a hard time, and I've had hard conversations with Kelly and with the state and with the commissioners about this, about how St. Vincent has been mismanaged in the past. Whereas from my perspective, I would like to know where that $833,000 in the fronted money from the Chase fee and HTP funds has gone and where it went. And if the 480K request today if that covers 90 days of payroll, because, or are you going to be coming back to us at the next payroll to meet your obligations to your staff that way? It's also just like thinking about sustainability for St. Vincent and for the community. I would like to better understand, what the per patient revenue is, and if you actually can sustain the model that you're on, or where Kelly and John have worked so hard to try and correct the organization. Because I fear that if you've had this fronted money, almost $1 million from HICPUF, the board, under their purview, what they will decide for that. And then if there is a tax anticipation note, come January for other property tax revenues that the hospital receives, I can't do the math in my head to see how your 23 or your long-term financial sustainability will work when you take those loans out from that future revenue. So I would really want, for me to be able to provide more advice to my board, I want to understand those things in the sustainability plan for the hospital, and how we get there. Because at the moment, if we not understanding the cost per service or your cost per month, or even and then the same thing on the revenue side, I don't know where else we go. And if you have to come back to the county again for a funding request, it just makes it challenging. So those are just some of the things that I would like to talk about. I know, and I've invited Colleen, our public health director, and Janine, our human services director as well, just so that they understand the impact to our clientele, particularly our Medicaid members, on this impact to them. And then also, I hate to bring it up, but I mean, what a restructure, or where the board is in terms of bankruptcy and completely overhauling everything for St. Vincent's Hospital District. I think all of those are on the table, and those things need to be discussed, in this open forum, so that the BOCC can make the best possible decision. And I also, Chris and I have conferred. I don't know if we can loan money or front it because of your special district status. I don't know if your legal counsel has another opinion on that, but.
And that's it. And I was going to say too, for a point of clarification, Kelly mentioned that I met with their legal counsel. I haven't actually met with him. I actually just exchanged emails right before this meeting today about a request for the county to release certain tax revenues for the ambulance service under the IGA that provides for those, which the county had received a request from the state treasurer to withhold releasing any tax revenues because the audit had not been submitted yet. And so that's the only direct communications I've had with their legal counsel, and I have not seen any formal proposal for an advance on those taxes or such, if that's what's being requested. But I did look at that there was a request for the county to loan the special districts some money. And while I don't think that creates an issue for the county, my concern is that under Tabor, because you are a special district, it may trigger an issue for the hospital, for your district, because that type of activity needs to be approved by the electors. And so I'm kind of struggling trying to figure out how the county would be able to do that without creating an issue for St. Vincent Hill. And if David, your attorney is,
Yep.
I've asked, I'd love to have, if he feels that there's a way around that. I did some research and could not find an exception to Tabor to cover that, but if he has found it, I'm always open to being educated.
Take it away.
So,
David is.
can I speak?
David,
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, this is David Greer. I'm special counsel to the hospital district. And I do know that this is, sort of coming together rather quickly. Borrowing money does have certain issues regarding the district. We do have the ambulance IGA in place. I do think that the most straightforward method forward for the two governmental parties here would be for the county to make an advance under the ambulance IGA to the district. That is, already contemplated. The county, if it has not already adopted its budget, it'll be adopting a budget and imposing the mill levy in order to collect those revenues. And the district's issue right now is one of timing. And so the IGA contemplates payments being made to the district on a monthly basis as they're collected by the county. And what the district would be asking for is for those monies to be advanced. And of course, the district would be amenable to memorializing that advance as an exception in some fashion to the normal provisions of the IGA if necessary. But, this would not be, the idea here is that this is not truly a loan, it's not a gift, it is merely an advance on the revenues that the county has already, obligated to collect under the ambulance IGA.
And I would remind the Board of County Commissioners and the St. Vincent District Board that there have been previous entreaties from the ambulance director this year to increase that mill levy and to do that. So again, my question is, if you are fronted this money, how does that impact your 2023 budget? Because if you're coming back in 2023 to ask the board for more funding, I don't know how appropriate that is or how Kelly will be able to pull that off on your books.
I had one other legal question, or I don't know, so I can see the pathway where this all works out. Things operate in the black and the ambulance service is provided, and eventually, that requested advance payment is sort of worked off or whatever the right word is. But in the other scenario, should, say, the hospital go bankrupt, I'm just curious, what even happens to the status of the special district or the ambulance mill levy? In bankruptcy, can you still collect revenue?
So what I can tell you is, the mill levy is collected by the county, essentially.
Yeah.
And then those funds are remitted by the treasurer. So that's still in place. Under the IGA, the funds aren't to be paid until they're collected. If there's a bankruptcy or for some reason the district defaults under the IGA, then the county has the ability to terminate the IGA and then take over provision of the ambulance services directly and then retain those funds in order to pay for those services. So the concern would be, in order to accommodate David's request that an advance on those fees be made, there would have to be an amendment to the IGA, number one, because it specifically provides that it's only paid once it's collected. And then the challenge is how to protect those funds once they're paid, because if not, if they're advanced and then, God forbid, the hospital service does go bankrupt, the ability to get those funds back in order to pay for the services is going to be very difficult. And then it puts the county in position to essentially have to pay twice for the ambulance services.
Well, I was just going to say that, we had this very same conversation in this same room in 2015 where the hospital was getting ready to close because they didn't have money to make payroll, and the board fronted them a loan to make payroll that was then repaid. And the ambulance fund only exists because the Board of County Commissioners took it to the ballot so that future boards of county commissioners could not do away with that IGA, so that it would last for the 25 years, because the county is responsible for providing the ambulance service. And my concern with fronting that is, are we not going to be able to provide ambulance service if we're not paying for it? And I don't know that that would be responsible to the voters, because that's what they voted for, was to pay for ambulance services. So that's a concern for me. And it's just so tragic that this community is in the same position so many times. And so many times we have the same conversation about making sure that the hospital survives. And it is so disappointing and so tragic that healthcare in this community is just on the whim all the time. So for me, that's concerning too, that we continue to find ourselves here even after we thought that we were in the black to build the hospital and those kinds of things. So I just am incredibly disappointed that we're continuing to have these conversations in the first place.
Mr. Marslett, the one thing I would say is that if the hospital ends up, it's unable to continue, that doesn't make the mill levy go away.
Yeah.
Those taxes will still be collected.
Right.
And so they would be available to provide those services.
I'm just worried if we
Specifically
front
for the
it,
adult.
right, and run the fund
Yeah.
to zero, then you would have to backfill that with our general fund, right?
Well, yes, you would have the money coming in, but it wouldn't be to recover what you had advanced to the
Right.
health.
Right, bring that back up.
Yeah, I want to especially be certain that ambulance services, with that money were prioritized, and that emergency response seems like high priority for us as part of our obligations statutorily. Is there a plan that what is the ambulance operating budget right now, and is there room to use these funds to making sure that provides maintained for the next 6 months at least before other funding is anticipated?
I want to make sure I understand your question. You're asking if there's a financial plan in place after we take the advance on this revenue to make sure emergency services are rendered. Is that correct?
I think so, yeah. If our interest and our responsibility might be to make sure that the ambulance service is remains whole and can provide services to the community. If that is a piece of the operations that is prioritized, under a potential requirement with this consideration, would you be able to give us that assurance that the ambulance service would run?
Well, so in this entirety, ambulance is not one of the individual service lines that is up for question as it relates to the future analysis, I guess, of each department. As I mentioned about going through and making tough decisions by department, ambulance is not one of those. We did recently, as of November 28th, file a cost report as it relates to our ambulance services, which should correct and increase some of the reimbursement. We had high denial rate due to some decisions as it related to the ambulance services, and those have been rectified. And we hope to see an increased reimbursement there. So I don't anticipate any changes as it relates to ambulance. What I am more concerned about is as we continue to pare down the facility as it relates to core services that are needed for the organization, we still have this huge chasm that we have to cross between today and those changes. And we have payroll on Friday be made for our organization and employees to be paid. And unfortunately, those changes all still have to happen, and it all takes time. I'm not trying to give you smoke and mirrors and a non-direct answer, but also know that we've made a ton. There's still more to be made as it relates to individual service lines, profitability by service lines, but ambulance is not one that we've questioned.
Sure, go ahead, Jonathan.
Jonathan Burkin, Vice Chair of the St. Vincent Hospital Board of Directors as of September this year. I've been a member at large since May of 2020. I want to just address a couple of points. Sarah, you said is right. Yeah, we did not act soon enough, and that is on our board of the hospital. Tim, what you mentioned, the ambulance service essentially, yes, that is part of our core services. That $750,000 that was voted for 2015, I believe. I was initially hired as a paramedic at St. Vincent, and I think that was about a $50,000 a year job. I think now we're paying our paramedics close to $85,000 or $90,000 a year. So our expenses have gone up dramatically in that time. And we are operating the ambulances as appropriate. I don't think we missed a 911 call. Jeremiah's on the call currently, but I believe conversations have also taken place regarding search and rescue, running the ambulance if they had to. Tim, were you part of those conversations? No. So I think there have been background conversations of, how's the ambulance run if it needs to be run by somebody else. But right now, that's a top priority for us.
to your point, I think, yeah, the management of St. Vincent has gone through a lot and is in a phase of total restructuring. And I think David had seen and talked about what bankruptcy options might exist, but I don't think we've met that threshold legally yet. The medicine that St. Vincent is doing right now is the best that this county has experienced in the last decade. The physicians at CarePoint, our bedside caregivers, are some of the most highly trained people in the state, and we are definitely delivering the best medicine that Leadville has known in this time. So I applaud our team, our leadership team, and we are on the right track. We just got to get across this chasm right now.
I had one other sort of line of questioning that came up in thinking through this is just the actual sort of like checkbook ability of the county to free up this much cash on such short notice. And I don't know if I have an answer to that.
Yeah, I think we'd have to call Patrick and ask about that. We put a lot of our revenue into investments, so we would likely have to call an investment down to be able to have the cash flow to do that. The end of the year is always really tricky with waiting for the next. Past the 90 days, is there any current discussion or thought of going from a hospital that has that long-term care facility to an urgent care or emergency room facility that stabilizes patients and transports them, or is that a cost savings, or what are the long-term plans?
May I speak to that?
Sure.
So I'm Kat Fry again, Chief Operations Officer. The current services that we offer with emergency services, we did have a level of care called urgent care, which we just recently ended that service line. Urgent care by itself was creating significant challenges with us with the billing and the coding for these patients. We would have patients that anticipated an urgent care visit and hence an urgent care bill. And yet when they got the bill, it was an emergent bill because there had been a transition during their stay that necessitated emergent care. We found that the urgent care designation immediately proved so problematic with all the other challenges that we're having with our billing and revenue cycle pieces that it made the most sense to our community to show transparency and drop that urgent care piece. Now, you asked about the long-term care. I will tell you that the Colorado Hospital Association and the Medicare Medicaid swing bed program that we have available to us as a critical access rural hospital is one of the most valuable things that we have in our arsenal of tools. Those stays that we have for patients that come back to swing beds, that's essentially like a long-term rehab. We're able to help patients get back on their feet after a qualifying length of stay, perhaps in our own facility or another facility. So the scenario for our swing bed patients that most commonly present is patients that are treated and stabilized only in our facility, flown down the hill, and they've had their longer care and now they need some rehab time. Those patients can come back to us to their own community where they can be cared for, and those are reimbursed very nicely. So there's a lot of profit on that piece. I'm giving away that option right now when we've just gone through the relationship building in September with Health One, which represents 6 hospitals in the Denver metro area, and then our local partners, the Heart of the Rockies and Vail, where we have just in the last 2 months been able to reach out and develop relationships where we're sort of data mining their patients for who can come back to us. And we've seen significant increases in our swing bed patients and swing bed patient days in the last 2 months. And I think that was part of what we presented at our board meeting just recently. So to answer your question in a long round way, yes and no, getting rid of that.
The way our staffing model is set up now, I have 2 nurses on night shifts, so having an ACU swing bed patient actually defers the cost of that second nurse. Because I remember, I do not want to run an ER with one nurse. There's too many variables, too many things that can go wrong.
Okay.
So the backup nurse is actually on our ACU taking care of swing bed patients. That defers that cost. And then I have 2 nurses there if a trauma comes in.
Okay.
I would love to hear more from St. Vincent leadership on partnership opportunities, especially with Health One, or even Vale Health, Intermountain, the other ones you discussed at the board meeting, the ability of how quickly those can move. And for the swing bed opportunities, again, what is that revenue per patient then? And will that actually begin to recover costs or cover the cost of that? And maybe before we get into that, I know Tom's on from CHA. It would be great to hear from the state, or I don't know, your association's perspective of what the hospital can do or partnerships they can do. And Tom, I don't know if you can offer anything to the Board of County Commissioners.
Hi all, Tom Brunell. I'm Senior Vice President of Financial Policy at the Hospital Association. Been spending a lot of time with St. Vincent, John, the CEO, and Kelly, CFO, and they've really got a lot of aggressive and important plans in place to really looks like get the hospital back into the positive cash flow and even making a margin. Sure, I think the critical nature of the issue is right now for the next 90 days. A lot of the questions and things you brought up today are incredibly relevant and important. The right designation for the hospital, what it could look like long term, the service offering mix, what the community needs, affiliations, discussions with other partners and players. Those, in my assessment, those have been are certainly on the roadmap. But I think a lot of the work has been just trying to get things stabilized and get the cash flow into the right favorable position here in the real short term. So I think there's some short-term work that is incredibly important. We've got to get the situation stabilized, and then longer term, really looking at what the community needs, whether the designations of the hospital are right and the service offering mix. We're here to help. We're here to support however we can. We've been trying to help connect with the state or other partners as needed from the executive team there. We'll stand ready to continue to support you all through this really challenging time. I'm happy to take any comments or questions as well, but just glad I could be with you here today.
So if I may add to that,
yeah.
Francine with the St. Vincent board and a study center in Lake County. So Tom has been very instrumental in working with, help me with the word, Tom, the agency Novitas. Nope. For once the Medicaid cost report is filed and in hand, that he has funds to the hospital, which is going to make a significant change and help the cash flow position, help to be able to pay back. We need to pay back. And so that's really, unfortunately, it's not a process that will happen quickly. And again, we're just kind of in a perfect storm here of things that were not done timely by our prior administration and not filed timely, and other things happening that have just culminated to this point, and we kind of can't progress past it. And because we're waiting. Unfortunately, is what has put us in this situation. But Tom has been, as he indicated, very instrumental in reaching out to various partners and stakeholders for us. And we have been having conversations with Vale Health and Intermountain about affiliations and ways they might help us stand up. We've had 2 conversations with Intermountain two short conversations with Val. Unfortunately, we're in the holiday season. Those won't resume until likely after. And again, they are not gonna help us in the short term because they have to be billed. We have to wait for the billings to come back. It will be appropriate services, appropriate billings when Kelly gets all through there and gets that all straightened out. It's been a part of the problem in the past. Appropriate, and we've been underpaid or not paid at all on a number of services. So that's going to be instrumental. That's a huge part of what is going to turn around the hospital cash flow service.
Okay. What's the status of the loan with the USDA? What happens if the loan goes into default?
Did you hear that, Dave?
We are in discussions with the USDA loan team. Right now, the loan is not expected to go into default. There are reserve funds available that are restricted in their use. They can only be used to pay principal and interest on the loan. But there is no expectation at this time for that loan to be in default. But like I said, we are talking with the USDA about the path forward and to make sure that stays the case. So, but you know, the USDA is not, if the loan goes into default, you know, what we have is assurances that obviously the federal government is not in the business, you know, made this loan in order to help the community. And so obviously the hospital district would have an ideal partner in terms of trying to work with the district in order to help with the workout, if that were to come to pass. But like I said, that's not expected.
Tim, do you have a recommendation to us, or do we need to convene tomorrow in an executive session with our attorney, or what's the best path forward?
Great question. I guess, you know, in the county's conversations with the state, Kelly's been aware of, I think there would be similar asks by the BOCC if they proceed with funding, what the sustainability and transformation plan looks like, and how the hospital remains financially viable. You know, I think then too with this request, I mean, I believe you, Kelly, but the proof that this will cover 90 days of payroll and will be used for 90 days of payroll, because obviously after this meeting, I imagine you'll have some people leaving to find more secure employment. So, you know, the damage done to the facility's reputation. So just having that consideration. And I think just, you know, understanding, and I can work with HICPUF on that, on where the Chase and the HTP funds have gone thus far, and what those have been utilized for. You know, the agenda item on today's meeting was framed as a discussion. So there will be no formal decision by the BOCC today. Otherwise, there will have to be I need 24 hours to post a meeting, so there'll be an emergency BOCC meeting that will more than likely be a supplemental budget request, and the board can do
tomorrow we have the funding request with the Tabor Opera House.
I think that we can reschedule.
Can we take that for one? But can we schedule a special meeting with legal at 1:30 to go into executive session?
Yes, and needs to be posted within the next 15 minutes.
Yeah, so let's shoot for 2 tomorrow.
Yeah.
We can do the executive session before that. If the board does vote for this, we can probably get St. Vincent the funding by Thursday. I don't know how that impacts your payroll, Kelly. People will be paid late, but at least they'll be paid. It's a payroll week for me too.
Yeah.
That's where we're at. I know both of us have follow-up meetings this afternoon with the state to see where they're at. And to provide an update to HICPUF. Leave it at that. Janine or Colleen, I don't know if you have anything you want to add from a provider's perspective and as our human services director on this impact to our community.
Well, certainly it would impact our community in terms of access to care and ability to be able to get care locally. We have an enrollment of 2,100 people in Lake County enrolled in Medicaid. So, and don't forget too that, Medicaid is that source of revenue as well for them. I don't know if there are problems with Medicaid billing, if it was just Medicare. I would recommend potentially that the board also have some factors that they consider, such as it seems like billing was a major issue. How are some of the issues going to be corrected that led to this? We have had trouble finding CEOs that were capable of leading in the right direction. So I know when we do contracts with vendors and we have concerns, we sometimes ask for some of those issues to be addressed before or along with release of fundings to make sure that you're not back in the same place again. But definitely it will impact Medicaid members, our 2,100 Medicaid members in Lake County to not have service. If it was the hospital alone, it's one thing. The hospital and the clinic is a whole nother thing.
Sarah, go ahead.
Do we have an idea of what kind of services those Medicaid members are getting and if they can be supplemented by public health?
I don't get the reports on services. We get the reports that show payments that were made. I don't have that report in front of me. I just have total enrollment at the moment, but I'm sure HICPUF and the Ray could probably break that down for us.
Is that something to offer as part of this unfold and communications to, although I don't know, I'm sure part of that is then eating into the revenue, but if there are, yes, anything that's not transferable between public health and the hospital would be some sort of specialty service that most people might be going out of town anyway for, I suppose. So maybe that's a moot point. Sorry, I was just thinking out loud there.
Yeah, this is Colleen, the Director of Public Health for Lake County. And unfortunately, a lot of what we are able to get reimbursed for is not direct care through even our insurance contracts that we have, our private insurance, including Medicaid. And so that would be a whole different kind of service model. I think I would echo what Janine's speaking about, like we're not just talking about the hospital, we're talking about the clinic as well. And that is a huge hit to our community, considering that, and that just shows that we don't have diversity of providers here in our community at this point in time. We have one system. And so that might be a bigger conversation as well.
Okay, thanks, Colleen. Jim, did you want to?
I just had a question. Really, I'm only presenting this as a question. Okay, I think we all realize how the emergency services works, and God only knows if we should miss a payroll, what's going to happen. I mean, your guess is as good as mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do for emergency services?
Yeah.
I mean, where are they going to go?
I believe Kelly was wanting to.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, I'd like to address a couple of questions, comments. There's been a lot and I haven't found a great time to interrupt. So first to Tim's question. Tim, you had posed two. One is, this is the first step in our 90-day game plan. So I want to be very clear about that. This 90 days is the chasm in total. The $480,000 shortfall covers December. And as it comes to January, we're looking at the January projections. The cost report will be filed, which will increase reimbursement. And there's lots of steps to do that. However, there is conversations that we've started. We haven't gone down any major roads as it relates to a TAN or a loan against our tax dollars. That is definitely something that is being discussed. Now, we haven't gone very far in that regard, but I want to be very clear that this 90-day game plan is where we have to make those critical decisions, as Kim had put it with HICPUF, as it relates to service lines that will be retained by us. And you guys have brought up some valid points as it relates to that family health center and clinic specifically, because the clinic services are stuff that really service our community, as well as some of the ancillary service providers that is provided through the hospital as it relates to that clinic, meaning lab, imaging, and whatnot. If a clinic orders those things and we don't have those services available, they have to travel a very long way to get those results right away. So that is part of the conversation that needs to be had. The second question or comment that Tim had made was related to the HICPUF funds of close to $1 million. It was $855,000 that was advanced for us through a provider fee and the Chase fee funds. Those funds have helped us make sure we're staying on payroll for those periods of time, terminate and pay the PTO benefits and all the payouts that had to happen for those behavioral health center and the Genetics Institute. It's also helped us pay some of our vendors and back payments as it relates to those vendors. But when you talk about payroll for our organization running about $900,000 a month, $800,000 does not go that far. And so those funds have been used, but they have been used appropriately, meaning we didn't just go out and buy any new equipment. It was to sustain our organization and make sure that we were paying for the decisions that we are making. So I want to be very clear about that, because Kim and I had a lengthy discussion about that yesterday at the state level. The bigger thing is as it relates to 2023 and how the budget process works, right? And we have been working at an individual departmental level, as I've mentioned before, to figure out the profitability of each individual service line. Decisions will be made. Now, we've talked about the critical components of clinic and ambulance, but to me right now is what happens when everything does shut down. So that's something I just want you guys to be aware of as you guys go into your decision making tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it, Kelly.
And I think just one final clarification then, Kelly. So the $480,000 request is to get you through patient services payroll for December?
Through December for our payroll, yes.
Okay. So how many pay periods do you have in January? How many do we have?
We have 3.
Okay. And you're prepared for that?
We're working on a plan for that, yes, sir.
Okay. I think, from here, I mean, the BOCC needs to think about or send asks, perhaps to the St. Vincent board on expectations for the funding. I will try and get this posted before 2 o'clock so that the meeting will be tomorrow at 2.
Yeah, if we can get I'd like to go into executive session, Chris. Okay, and then I think we can come up with those terms or whatever that looks like in the executive session and let them know determination by tomorrow afternoon.
Okay.
Commissioner Mudge, does that sound like a good plan to you?
Well, okay, so let me I just want to clarify, maybe from David, sorry, Commissioner. If we use the ambulance IGA as the vehicle for that, have you and Chris come to an understanding, perhaps this can be done offline, of since the St. Vincent audit is not done, we are required by the state to withhold your funding. Is that impacted by this?
Is that a question to me or to Chris?
I think if you and
to-
Chris could
yeah.
convene and chat through that, that would be great. Our treasurer's been instructed to not release any revenue.
Well, but here's the thing, is that the ambulance, the mill levy, the revenues collected under that mill levy are collected by the county, not the hospital directly, even though those funds are written, the check is written to the hospital.
Okay.
So I think in terms of those revenues, those can be released,
Okay.
for the hospital, that mill levy, those revenues.
Okay.
But it's the
That's-
other stuff that can't.
Okay.
Right. That's the very conversation by email that Chris and I had earlier today.
Time frame on your audit?
Into this one.
Oh, it would be
Based off of,
Can
you hear me?
Yeah.
Our audit is scheduled to be completed in the next 2 weeks. We're in final partner review of our audit, as well as the single audit. And then that also will allow for us to file a corrected cost report, which will increase our receivables for Medicare. And then from there, in January, we'll file an interim and adjusted cost report for 2023, which is why I was saying it's a 90-day game plan, because once the audit's complete, it opens up all the other doors that we're kind of stuck on at this point.
Okay, so I think we've got a plan going forward. And I think if we need anything in the interim, we'll be in contact with the board and staff as needed. Commissioner Mudge, are you good with meeting tomorrow at 2?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
We want to try to get some questions or just hash through that. I think I still have a question if something were to happen and doors closed, perhaps, what's our assurance on fronting those funds?
Yeah. Okay, well, I think that will be our game plan and we'll get that posted right away. Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks for coming. We'll have Tim be in touch after we meet tomorrow. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You know how to get hold of me.
Thank you all.
Bye, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I'll just tell him.
And if you want, Anne probably knows, just noticing that Alan Elias is on.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I asked too that he heard at the start, but he's just
Hanging out.
watching, and we can reiterate.
Okay. No, that's fine. Go ahead. Do you have something? Yeah, Jeff, we'll take a quick 2 minutes. Sarah will be right back.
Probably watch for the next.
Got staff report. All right. Sarah, we're back. Get out of the way. Okay. Okay, guys, so we'll come back, get ready to roll. Just as a reminder, item number 9, file 22-37, Angel View 2, major subdivision sketch plan has been removed from the agenda, so we will not be hearing or doing any action on Angel View, and we'll skip right to number 10, which is now number 9, file 22-39, 914 Copper Drive, accessory dwelling unit CUP. Just as a reminder, the public hearing portion of this is closed. And so we won't be taking any comment. We will only be interacting with staff on the application. So I'm going to hand it over to Anne.
Thank you. So at the November 28th, 2022 joint public hearing, the Lake County Planning Commission has brought forward a recommendation on file number 2239. And so I will go ahead and read into the record that recommendation. The Planning Commission unanimously approved with 4 members in favor the following motion. The motion was made by Abby Dahlman and seconded by Joey Edwards. I move that the Planning Commission recommend conditional approval to the Board of County Commissioners of file number 22-39, a conditional use permit application for an accessory dwelling unit on a parcel of land of less than 1 acre pursuant to the standards of section 5.3.1B at 914 Copper Drive, Leadville, Colorado. Further finding that the approval criteria pursuant to the Lake County Land Development Code section 3.6.1.f have been made as evidenced in the staff report dated November 28, 2022 for file 2239. The conditions for approval are all statements made by the applicant in the application and hearing shall be considered conditions of approval. And I would just share that the deliberation on the file, there was quite a bit of public, as the board is aware, during the public hearing, there were a lot of concerns voiced by the members of the subdivision. During deliberation, the Planning Commission highlighted a need for some potential education on and some more information going out as we look at short-term rentals during the moratorium period, which I know we're going to have a very vetted process and opportunities for public engagement. And so we've already provided the members of that community or that subdivision ways in which to be signed up on the website to get that information very timely. But overall, the Planning Commission felt that an accessory dwelling unit to a primary single-family home, which this still is, it's not a multifamily unit that's being proposed, is a way in which, and a tool that could be used to address a lot of our affordable housing needs within the community, specifically in workforce housing, that 1-bedroom, 1-bath units are in high demand. And so on that basis, during the deliberation, they really brought that forth, and that's really kind of the basis for their suggestion for approval.
Okay. Commissioner Fiedler, Commissioner Mize, do you have any questions for Anne on the statement of motion?
I don't have any questions. I provide a lot of the comments from the public were concerns that actually did not seem to be conflicting with the application, as Anne kind of was saying, but it was brought up that some of the covenants, and there is no functional HOA to monitor that, as I understood it in Mountain Pines, that subdivision filing required, a single or state that there'll be single family home units, which as the application is, this is a single family home, and this is kind of embedded in that single structure. And now that I've gone through that, I'm sorry I missed the other couple points, but there were another couple points like that that seemed to be, not in conflict with the application that was presented.
Right. Okay, I don't really have any questions or comments. I wasn't available to be at the hearing, but I did get the recording from Anne and listened to it, and I don't feel like I had any questions or concerns. Commissioner Fiedler?
I mean, I just agree with the points that Sarah Mudge just made. I think some of the comments didn't seem to apply to this particular CUP, and as and you've explained, I mean, I think everybody sees more education, the difference between an ADU that's essentially attached to a single family home versus off the spectrum towards, duplexes, triplexes, multifamily. I think, Sarah, one other concern, sorry, you already mentioned, is like, increased traffic on that street. And it seems like, actually one question that came up, and I didn't know the answer, it came up in a side conversation after the hearing that I didn't know the answer to, is, I mean, on that site, a single family home without an ADU could have the same number of bedrooms and the same potentially number of bathrooms and same number of parking spots and cars and traffic, like, so at least I'll just say for me, a smaller single family home and an ADU is not materially different to the neighborhood, some of the impacts that were raised, than, like one larger single family home or a smaller and an ADU seems to be the same neighborhood impact.
Right.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Feeler. That's right. There was a comment about, how would this affect the plowing and where would they park, which everything is on site, not any different than any other home out there. So it seems immaterial to the application.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the motion to approve the accessory dwelling unit CUP for file number 22-39 at 914 Copper Drive.
Second.
Okay. Is there any further conversation? Okay,
Nothing.
seeing none. All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for sticking around.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you.
Learn more about the county than you ever wanted to.
Cool, thank you, appreciate it. All right, thanks everyone. Coming up next on our agenda. Okay. Reports, minutes, bills, and payroll. I will make a motion that we approve bills and payroll for the pay period ending on November 18th, 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion?
None for me.
No thanks.
All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we all said aye. Okay, and with that, that brings us to the conclusion of our agenda today. We don't have any minutes on the agenda, so we will see you tomorrow for a meeting with the Tabor Opera House and then a special meeting going into executive session. So thank you all so much. Oh, we'll adjourn at 1:35.